So Alpha 12 went very well, didn't it?
Yeah, Alpha 12 went great. Yeah, it was a big update, Alpha 12. It was I don't know what, 3 months long or something like that, maybe even slightly longer. Yeah, it had absolutely tons of stuff in, and I feel like it was gone down really well. The new combat zones have gone down really well.
Best reviewed alpha, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Steam.
We're seeing our Steam reviewers slowly creeping upward now, and we've got a demo out now as well, which I think we plugged quite a lot last time. And we went to DreamHack, didn't we?
Oh, we did. We've done that. Yeah, we had
in Stockholm.
Amazing time in DreamHack watching people play, and that was a great event. That really.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, and we saw a lot of people, even new players, diving into the new combat zones and having fun. Generally getting destroyed, but in a good way.
I feel like we found our stride now. I feel like we built a world that the last Starship could play out in, but it was a bit difficult to navigate and get into. And I think we've found the way in which to bring people on board, through the stories, through the characters, into the world that we've created, into the simulation. And it's playing really well. And now for next year, we can really focus on deepening the mid-game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I think we found the stories the episodes were the breakthrough that made the game so much easier to get into. I think we made something that was very difficult to understand at first, and then and it's only now, it feels like it's only now that we're coming back and going over some of the simulations parts that we wrote over a year ago, and kind of bringing them into the game. We definitely had a big crack at the combat stuff last episode.
I feel like there's a commentary there on the state of indie game development in 2024. Because I think if we'd made this game 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I think a lot of people would have been so enamoured with the world, the simulation, the depth of it, that they would have tried really hard with the game. They would have put a lot of hours in it, and the onboarding wouldn't have mattered as much. But now the quality of indie gaming has risen to such an extent that there are many other small businesses, small game developers that can make games of this complexity and this nature, and the tolerance for gamers is going down. In terms of I don't want to have to alt tab to a wiki.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But I also think a huge factor is availability of indie games, right? As in the quantity, because scary as it is for us to admit this, it's now 12 years since we launched Prison Architect.
Wow.
And 12 years ago, there were about, 4,000 games or something. And now there's something like 80,000 games. And the number of games released every year continues to grow and grow and grow, to the point where we're looking at 50, 60, 70 games per day launched on Steam. With that kind of availability of games now, obviously it's a lot easier to say, this game doesn't immediately give me what I want. I'm just going to refund it, and then I'm going to go and try something else. And I think Prison Architect was similarly obtuse.
Yes.
You played the first chapter, and that was great, and then bang, you're in the sandbox. Right now, you have to figure out everything else yourself, and we got away with it then because it was a cool game, and there wasn't the same sort of flood of indie games to pick from. But there's definitely been a big change in that area, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, should we dive into Alpha13?
All right, so let's start by looking at the industry side of the game, right? We have these different pillars of the game, as we know now. Industry is one of the big ones. We have our Deep Space Industrialist storyline. We have here a factory that I often return to, because this is kind of the factory that you get at the start. And what you'll notice here is that it's all a bit of a mess, right? There's crap everywhere, right? It's like my kid's bedroom. Right?
It's like your mind.
Yeah, it's also like my mind. And what I want is I want my kids to tidy up this bedroom, quite frankly. So we've introduced a new bit of equipment, which is called the storage crate.
Right.
So let's. I've got a few here. Let's bring in the storage crate.
Oh, they're quite big.
Place it. There's two, right? There's the storage crate.
Right.
And there's the small storage crate.
Storage crate small.
Yeah. So let's place this down and then see how we get along. So we install the storage crate. So this is a new piece of equipment that lets you, on surface level, is for storing things, and that's all it does. Let's right click on this and tell them that I want you to store all these copper ingots in this box. Right? Copper ingots. And what we'll see very quickly is that all of our crew come along and immediately start loading all the copper ingots into our storage crate in order to, fill it up and clear up the space that's around
Nice.
here.
So sort of maximising the verticality, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you've got storage areas on the floor, but you can
so this
effectively...
This is a lot more storage, right? So this takes up 4 squares. 12 squares, 4 by 3. But it can store 70 items.
Right.
So it's like it's got a lot of space inside, and it's a really great way to organize things. Right. So the same thing is true over here. You notice over here we've got a production line, and these things are all producing like Stargate frames.
Right.
And we're mass producing Stargate actuators. Right. We're obviously deep into the Deep Space Industrialist project, and this is all very deliberate because these storage zones here, this is you communicate to your crew how many of these things you want. Right? So if you put if you zone this area as Stargate frames, your crew will make Stargate frames in these assembly tables, right, until that area is full, and then they'll stop. Right? And it's kind of how you specify how many you want, because it's a buffer project. It's a buffer product, right? It's an in-between product. And so if we tell them to go for Stargate frames, and then in this one, Stargate actuators, and then in this one, they're like, I don't know, like motors or something. Motors. Right, so straight away they'll start tidying up. So there's a interesting few extra options here, right? So there's this concept of like prioritized zones, right? There's like this tick box at the bottom. So what this means is that if you have prioritized zones on, which is the default, then things inside a storage crate will be stored in floor storage in preference to the crate.
Okay. And
if you turn it off, then all this stuff down here that is in this storage zone will be loaded into the crate. Right? So basically you're saying which is higher priority there. Would you rather have the items in the storage crate, or would you rather have them on the floor? Right? And the reason why you have this is because think about gun turrets. Right? Gun turrets, you want to have loads of ammo on your ship, for example.
Right.
But you want to have some of the ammo really close to your gun turrets. So the really close to your gun turrets is achieved by these floor storage areas, right?
Yeah.
And then when they're all full, then the rest will start backing up into these things.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the storage crate. So I am going to come back to that because this is one part of several, okay, the storage crate. There are several updates in this alpha which are all around the theme of industry and mining and all that kind of stuff. And the storage crate is one part of it, all right? So we're coming back. But whilst we're looking at that, I'm also going to bring up this new research screen. Right? Now, the screen itself isn't new. This has always been our tech tree. But you might notice that there's quite a lot more entries on this tech tree now. Right, a whole bunch of new stuff has appeared. Check this out. We have science. Right? Science is a research project. Now, that gives you, it increases all your reactors by 10% and all of your smelters by 25%. So if we begin this, it tells us straight away we don't have any scientists and we don't have any science stations. Right? Now, we haven't done science for a long time.
No, it's been ages, hasn't it?
So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to buy some science equipment just so we can remember what's actually involved. Let's go for that. I can sell all of those Stargate actuators. Science. There we go. Right, so I've ordered a bunch of science equipment. So let's do some science stations. Supercomputers.
Power those bad boys up.
So this is like this research stuff is like the connecting tissue for this entire update. Like all the new stuff that's in the game has come about from expanding this tech tree and giving you new capabilities. Right? Because what's underpinning this is that I've been playing like the Deep Space Industrialist storyline and also like trying to mass produce Stargate parts and getting frustrated that there's like a ceiling to how well I can make it work.
Right.
And that ceiling is coming about because everything is kind of tier 1, you know? Like we've had the logistics drones forever, we've had the mining lasers forever, we've had these storage areas on the ground forever, and it's never changed, right? So it's very difficult to scale up in a kind of like, I want 10 times more kind of a way. Get another scientist. Yeah. So this is our scientists. So our scientists are operating these science stations. You have to have crew, you have to have science stations. The supercomputers are used when you do different research projects that need a different type of research. So I can cheat, and I can press this magic key and unlock science.
Right.
And this is how it works, right? So you unlock further things, which are all more interesting. So check this one out. Mining laser precision, right? So this particular upgrade says, mining lasers extract twice as many minerals per shot. Right, so if I unlock this one, and then take a look out, every time our mining lasers hit this mineral patch, we'll get twice as much minerals popping up.
Nice, yeah,
right?
nice.
It's a simple update, but it makes a big difference. And you'll find that if you run it for long enough, even though our drones are right here, even though are collecting right here, they can't keep up, right? Because we're now. So in other words, we've made this upgrade, but it hasn't necessarily had the effect that you think, because we're producing more minerals, but we're not gathering any more minerals, right? Because there's a limit to what our drones can collect. See. So if we go back to our tech tree, you'll find that there's now a bunch of new drone upgrades, right? We can increase the speed of our drones by 50%. But more exciting than that, we can unlock drone intelligence.
Ooh.
Upgrades
AI.
drones so that they collect minerals in batches, greatly speeding up the process. This is drone batch collection. So when drone batch collection is unlocked, which it now is, you'll see that for the first time ever, our drones collect minerals.
Nice,
but then they pick them up in like a batch, right? Until they've built up entire collections of minerals underneath each of them. It's so much more efficient.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah.
And then they bring these batches of minerals back to our ship. And so this part is more efficient as well, because they're bringing back these enormous stacks of minerals rather than bringing them back one at a time. Yeah, all of that makes
that's very good.
Pretty big difference. All right, so let's have a look at.
So just remind me, there's a concept of research points or something, isn't there? Remind me how it works.
Probably should have explained that, shouldn't I? So, say you wanted to unlock metallurgy, right? So metallurgy is your smelters produce 50% more output from the same input. So you click begin research. So this requires 2 research points and 1 computation point. Right, so research points are researched in that thing, the science station, with a scientist, and computation points are like sort of like data processing in a mainframe, which is on that machine. So you can see that our crew, this is our crew do it. This is them doing it, and it slowly ticks up in the background.
Oh, I see. So just over time, eventually that will chick over, and then you'll be able to unlock it.
Exactly. And so it takes a long time now to unlock all of this stuff. For the purpose of the alpha video, I'm obviously going to cheat.
Yeah,
endlessly.
absolutely.
So that's storage crates, which we're coming back to soon, believe it or not, and mining laser upgrades and drone upgrades. So this means you can gather materials a lot faster generally. So let's go to a different example, shall we? Let's go to this one. So this is like, in keeping what I've just been describing, this is my attempt to make a much more efficient Stargate part producing factory. You can see that everything is made in a Factorio style production line.
Yeah.
So let's turn on mining. So I've got my mining lasers here. We've got our metallic minerals here. So I think in this world, mining laser precision is unlocked and drone speed and intelligence is unlocked. If I get them to gather materials, they'll do their thing, right? So they'll do their batch collection. This makes such a difference to the speed at which they can bring minerals in. But you'll see that in this particular setup, it's more elaborate, right? I've now got these little short robot arms attached to each drone bay. Right? And so as they bring these things in, like the robot arms unload everything into these conveyor belts, right? And they all eventually form down this line here. So these come along this way, right? And these come along this way, and then they get melded together here, where we've got this blockage, and this is not right. So let's do. So these are smart robot arms. These have been in the game for a while, but this is the problem is, you see, that straight away I'm looking at this and going, this is going to take forever, right? Because it's all just too slow, right? If I set this to metallic minerals, metallic minerals, metallic minerals, there we go. That's what I wanted to do. And so what's happened here is these metallic minerals are coming on this line. But you can see there's a bunch of drones on the track.
Oh, right. Yeah, why are they there?
Well, when the drones are done, when there's nothing left to collect, the drones fly back to the drone bay, and then they get put onto the track.
I see.
Right? So you have to filter. Right? You have to filter. You can actually just right-click on the drones and they'll unload, and that will clear the blockage. But if you want to do it properly, this smart robot arm here, you could set to logistics drones. And then as they appear at the bottom, they'll go. So you can see this is working, right? Stuff's flowing. But it's a bit slow, isn't it? It's all a bit slow. Right? So if we go back to our research screen, if we look under automation, you'll find a whole bunch of new tree arms around here now. We now have robot arm speed. Doubles the speed of all robot arms. Right? So let's cheat and get that. Right? So now our robot arms are suddenly running faster. But you can see that the robot arms are stopping, right? The robot arms are now stuck. Oh, I need to do more here. Here we go. So we have to do some filtering here. We have to do metallic minerals and copper minerals. There we go. So copper minerals are going to this storage crate. So you can see the storage crates. So
bit of buffer now. It's buffering.
It's buffering. Now, if you try and imagine how you would have accomplished this previously without storage crates. Well, you can't, because the robot arms would have just unloaded onto the same space on the floor every time, right? So the storage crates are very connected to this new stuff, these new upgrades. You know, they're like a critical component for getting this kind of setup to work.
I see.
So if you go back to research, you'll find there's also a track speed 1 and 2, doubles the speed of all tracks. Let's go for that. Well, let's go for track speed 2. Triples the speed of all tracks. This one's a bit more expensive, right? So now we have arms and tracks working at a much higher speed as a result, right? So our mining lasers are, mining twice as much. Our drones are collecting much more efficiently. Our tracks are moving faster. Our arms are moving faster. And we now have these brilliant buffers as well, So you can see that the items are being put onto this line and then being smelted automatically, and then when they're done,
can smelter speed be upgraded?
Yes. So let's go back to our science grid. Under science now, you'll find so metallurgy 1 and 2 did exist previously. They've been rebranded underneath this sort of science subcategory.
Right. Okay.
Now. I'm slowly reorganizing this thing, and I think it will keep growing new categories, but I don't want it to just be like a random spider web. So if we go from metallurgy level 1, for example, we have 50% more output, and metallurgy level 2 gives us 100% more output from every smelter. So what that means is, for the same amount of metallic minerals in, we now get twice as much metal ingots out.
Okay.
Right? Which obviously makes a huge difference. And then obviously the arms and the lines all pick it up much faster. Right, and so you can see that this production line ultimately ends up working a lot quicker as a result. You still need humans at the end with the assembly tables. It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah,
I feel
it's really cool. Yeah,
I feel like this is like what I had in mind, years ago,
Yeah.
when we were talking about building mega projects and stuff, like these kinds of bespoke factories that make something specific.
It feels like it would be a lot of fun to build that, start building it out and then unlock your research and speed it up.
Yeah.
You feel you get that real sense of satisfaction.
And I think that's what will happen, because it does take a long time to research all of this stuff. Yeah, so you can even, in your storage crates, you even have these tick boxes that enable and disable crew loading and crew unloading. So if you disable both, like this, that means that crew will never load anything into this crate, and they'll never unload anything from this crate either.
So just be the robot arms.
You're saying robot arms only.
Yeah.
And there are scenarios when you want to do things like that, and you want to have you might want to have the crew. Say you didn't have this incoming line, you might want to set this copper minerals to be crew loading but not unloading. So what that means is whenever you buy any more copper minerals, the crew will load them into this crate, right, at the beginning of the production chain. But then they'll never unload them because the robot arms are taking care of that. So that is significantly more efficient storage zones and tracks and robot arms and drones and mining lasers, all with an aim towards science and research and industry.
And so the context of this is within the deep space industrial story, right?
Yeah, or the Stargate Project generally, right? The Stargate.
Yes.
So the Stargate Project now, we do have the Deep Space Industrialist storyline, which you can follow along, and it's all about building all these parts. You can now bypass that episode altogether. Right? It's very interesting that you can put in, you create these mad episodes, and then some players, typically the more advanced players, actually just want to bypass that story episode and go straight to the Stargate production.
And so you can't do that. You can just sell.
You can do that now. So now there's this new wing over here called Andromeda Project Part 1. So if you research this on your own, it unlocks the Stargate frame blueprint, and it unlocks the Andromeda Project, which is like the Stargate Project. And so you just have to work your way along these. So you can do the Stargate Project without ever being involved with the Alexander James Ellistar guy, the contract where But the advantage of that storyline, and the reason why we've done it, is because it's bloody complex, all this stuff, right? It's really complex, and it's very expensive. It costs a lot of money to build a ship like this. So he kind of helps you with that, Right. He helps you by, in the storyline, he gives you a lot of seed capital and helps you get this production line up and running. And then you split all the profits with him. So that's how it works.
In terms of progress toward completing the Stargate, then, because it has been a long time since we've looked at this, where is that in game? Oh, I was hoping you were going to stay in that same
no, because
game.
The storyline isn't running in that one. It's running in this one.
Okay.
So if we go back to this game, you can see here I've been doing some organising. All these different crates have all got different things in them now. So this is the guy, right? Alexander James Ellistar. So he basically says to you, he's like this semi-retired but unbelievably wealthy businessman, and he has a load of ships that he's going to give you, and he wants you to do the floor management. The Stargate Project looks like this. If you remember, you have to manufacture large quantities of all of these parts. Each one of these parts requires a different production line. So that factory we were just looking at was making the Stargate actuator. Just that one.
Yeah, fine.
Makes sense.
And are all 10 of these phases in the game at the moment? Is there something to do?
So
no, okay.
I would say that, to be honest, only phase 1, 2, and 3 are in a final state at the moment.
Right, okay.
Phase 4 and 5 exist, but they're on the list to be. They're going to get changed.
Yeah.
It's just that we're only a small company, and so we have to work through things, and sometimes we have to leave storylines in an intermediate state.
Well, that's what early access is, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
We're
for
not finished yet, so yeah.
It is for us.
So that's it. So you can build your complex factory for manufacturing phases 1, 2, and 3 at the moment, and when we put the whichever updates we're dropping it into next year, we'll push further along that path. Yeah.
He takes you as far as Stargate phases 1 and 2, and in the first chapter, and then he takes you through phase 3 in the second chapter. So you do the first 3 phases with him, and that storyline is going to continue. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet, but I think all of this, players won't get all of this at first, because I don't really expect players to be building those tracks and robot arms automations at this early stage, but you certainly will be doing later on. The other thing that I added is I added this drone assembly. Let me load a different save for this, actually. Drone. It's getting quite complex now, to the point where I need different saves to demonstrate different things. So this is that same game, but hours later. Right? Okay. You can see how it's kind of like, it's getting quite silly at this point. We're now sucking in our own Metreon gas and producing our own fuel with that setup over there. And that's what that little mini factory does, because we're in the middle of an asteroid belt, so we have to have a constant supply of fuel. And then these hyperspace collectors are gathering isotopes, and that's all been turned into deuterium. That's what this setup down here is. So we're keeping our fusion reactors fully up and running with deuterium. And then this is like a little burgeoning life support system, doing waste recycling and oxygen recycling, and growing our own food, just starting to grow our own food. Anyway, the reason why I was here was to show you that there is actually another research item called drone assembly, right? For the first time ever, you can now unlock the schematics to construct your own logistics drones.
Oh, cool. Right.
You have to make a processor first, and then so you can unlock this. So they were actually doing it already by the looks. So this is the logistics drone. So it needs a lot of components, right? It needs a frame, a motor, an energy coil, a lens, and a processor, which is the new component. And you can see here there's a fabricator making a processor from precious metals and copper ingots.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So for the first time ever, those precious metals, which I think is what we're actually mining, this stuff is kind of like gold in the game. Like it has a commercial value. But now it's also used in production of what's essentially like semiconductors, you know. All right, that's that. So that's the industry side. Let's move on to defense, shall we? Combat.
Yes, good.
Defense.
So we did some combat. We did the combat zones in 12, didn't we? We're
Big
building
change.
on that now.
Big change, yeah. So I've carried on. Let's load this wonderful new ship that Johnny Struggles sent me, called the Mini Beast. This is a small but phenomenally deadly ship, as designed by Johnny Struggles, and I'm going to now make it more deadly. I'm going to improve it. Well, actually, straight up, it's a bit of a diversion here. So this is interesting. You see these are cannons, right?
Yeah.
Cannons and railguns. And this is a track. It's a track of ammo with robot arms, right? And this is how he's guaranteed that his cannons are always loaded.
He's always going to have ammo. Right? Nice.
And I think we can do better than that. I think that I'm going to delete all of that. Delete. And the same up here. Because I think that this type of setup is now obsolete. Think of this. I can take a small storage crate and I can place it here.
Right in the middle.
And here. And I can install our cannons like this, and our railguns like this. So I've just slightly changed the arrangement. So this is 4 railguns up here.
Okay, and 4 cannons. So you can put the same ammunition,
I'm going to say
right?
cannon shells here, right? And I'm going to say railgun slugs here. Railgun slugs. And let's order a load more railgun slugs, cannon shells. And then let's use short robot arms like this. Yeah, so I got distracted here. I just this wasn't what I meant to demonstrate, but I just saw this in his ship and I thought, this is a much better way, right? So now all 4 of these cannons are drawing ammo from this central box.
Nice,
and
nice.
all 4 of these railguns are drawing shells from that central box. So again, the storage crate has got another use, right? Because it's just automating the reloading of turrets. Anyway, research, back to research. Under science, there's a new intriguing entry. Deflector beams.
Ooh.
Let's have a look at this one. Unlock schematics to build a defensive system that can deflect incoming cannon shells.
Interesting.
Right. So let's research this. So this is the first future tech weapon system in the game. The 3 weapon systems that we have in the game are already based on what's already present. But I've invented a new one called a deflector. Now you can't buy it anywhere as a result, so if you go looking, you'll find that the deflector is never on sale. Right? You have to manufacture your own. You have to build your own deflectors. Now I have pre-built some deflectors for this ship. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some weapon systems, and I'm going to remove some thrusters, like this. And in their place, I'm going to build some deflectors, I think. Let's see. I might need to move these batteries first. Install deflector. Here we go. So let's have one here, and one here, and one here. You can see they're quite awkwardly shaped, right? Mm-hmm. They're 4 in width. They're bigger than the gun turrets. Cables. Everything's cabled. Yes, everything's cabled. And let's put those batteries back. There we go. So now we have 4 deflectors, right? So what does a deflector do? Well, in order to demonstrate what a deflector does, we need to go to our sector map and return to our hostile zone.
Combat zone, we need to go and pick a fight.
We need to go and pick a fight in a combat zone. Let's do that. We have 3 enemy ships. So this deflector is effective against incoming cannon shells, right? And that is the only thing it is effective against. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to disarm our weapons so that we don't blow anybody up too quickly.
Okay.
Right,
so we need to see how these deflectors work.
I'm going to click on hold fire, so you see the deflectors are here. When you go to battle stations, they pop out as like these little shield icons.
Yeah, nice.
And let's get fired at by a rocket. Here we go.
Hey, look at that.
Did you like that?
Oh, that's cool, man, yeah.
Let's do that again. All right, go on, do it again. Do your best.
Take your best shot. That's really cool.
All right, let's turn ours back on.
Right, can we blow them out of the sky now?
Yeah, I think we probably should. They are not. They do not have the benefit of this yet. At the moment, it's quite a nice. There's a nice peaceful period because at the moment, nothing in the Steam Workshop has deflector beams.
Right.
So at the moment, you'll never go up against an enemy ship that has a deflector beam. But you can have them on your own ship. Right? So let's do this instead rather than waiting around there. Let's go for. All right, we have our incoming enemy fleet. We have a class 4 Rigel heavy fighter.
Heavy fighter with some rockets.
A Chakrali fighter. And we have a few things here to worry about. Okay, so let's go. Let's try this out. All right. Yeah. So while we wait for that, it's kind of what am I thinking here, right? So this is like think of it as like a physics effector, right? What would you call a physics effector? A repulsor. There we go.
Yeah.
A repulsor beam, you know, like the rockets in the lore of this game. Here we go. See that?
Yeah, they're cool. It looks really cool.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. The rockets in this game are self-propelled. They're like RPGs, aren't they?
Right.
They're not guided in any way. They just fly in a straight line, and they're just like a little cannon shell. That's why I think of them, an explosive shell. So what this in my mind, what this repulsor beam does is it just applies like a little physics push, to the rockets when they're coming in. Just applies a little force in just the right place.
Just enough, yeah.
Just enough to deflect it, and they will do only enough to deflect it. Let's try a more serious example then. Right, so here's an even bigger ship, right, called Deflector Tester. This is the ship that I've been using to test.
That is a beast.
This is like the extreme version of it. So here we have like 6 deflectors on each side. So I'm hoping that we'll see, that we'll actually see some enemy ships now that have some actual rocket launchers. Let's give this a try. Right. So this is going to be quite an extreme example of these things, right? Because I've got 6 on either side.
Yes, they're going to have quite a big effect.
Yeah, so as a general rule, having one deflector on the side of a ship is probably enough to stop like 1 or maybe 2 incoming rockets at once. Because it has to deflect for long enough, right? It has to deflect the course of the incoming cannon shell for long enough for it to not hit.
Oh, that looks wicked. It's really cool.
So you can see here, we have to get in line. Our deflector has to point at the incoming rockets, right? It doesn't work at a long angle. I mean, if you get enough of them, you can go full Neo on the enemy.
Yeah.
You can be standing there dodging. Actually, it's not Neo, is it? It's like Mr. Smith. Like when he's on the rooftop.
Agent Smith, yeah. So I suppose, but it doesn't. They don't deflect everything, right? So if you were attacking a ship with a deflector dish, you need to take it out with your railgun or something.
Right. So we're going to start to see that. We're going to start to see ships in the workshop that have got deflectors on them, and you're going to have to use your railgun to target the deflector and destroy it first. But you can see that you can overwhelm them, right? So all 4 of these deflectors are busy pushing this cannon shell. There's 2 more coming. So you can be overwhelmed quite easily, and you can still take hits. The other thing that you'll notice when we're in, so if I've put my weapons on hold, right? So I'm just playing defensively now. The only thing I'm doing is dodging rockets, just for demonstration purposes, and you can see it's working well.
Yeah.
But at close range, it's less effective. Close range doesn't really work because you haven't got long enough to deflect the incoming shells. Right? So if you can be at more of a range when they start firing at you, then you have longer to apply the deflecting force. Right? So you might think to yourself that this will make us essentially invincible, and it kind of will. Like, you'll see us doing the Neo dance for a while. Incoming rockets are just going to bounce out of the way, all right, and we're going to be free to do our thing. But when we get overloaded, you'll notice that the power drain on our ship becomes quite extreme. Oh shit, I need a turn. There we go. It's quite interesting as well, like your deflectors have to be pointing in the right direction, otherwise they have no effect. They have like a 45-degree, well, I can show you, they have that's their cone, that's the deflector's cone. So as long as enemy rockets are within that cone, they can do the deflection. But you can see the power demand on our ship is way beyond what the ship can cope with. Right. We're under a really heavy attack from a big ship. Sort of like the railguns, right? In the sense that because it's an energy weapon. The way I think about it is the amount of energy that you require to put a small push on a shell is huge at distance.
High, yeah.
Because you're projecting that energy over a long distance, and so it just drains the hell out of your battery. And then once you run out of battery, your deflectors stop working.
Right. And then you're a sitting duck.
Yeah. Well, then you hope that you've done enough damage at that point. But I just wanted to make it... I feel like this is going to be one of those things where there'll have to be some balance, We'll have to see what people do with these. But I didn't want you to just be able to build a wall of deflectors and make your ship absolutely invincible. Your deflectors kind of are very clever in their own way, but they're also kind of limited in their own way, and they require a correspondingly larger power generation network, to run. I've managed to maneuver myself around behind this big ship, which is a good place to be.
You've taken it out now.
Yeah. Your own cannon shells are obviously unaffected. Yeah, so it's like it's what I said earlier. It's like the first of the future tech weapons, you know.
Yeah, it's
kind of want combat in this game to start to take on other elements, you know, that aren't just like a how much damage per second can we do. You know, I want them to be other elements, like defensive elements.
A bit more tactical, yeah.
Yeah, and more elements that require you to have your ship manoeuvred in the right place and the right angle as well. Yeah, so that's Deflector Beams.
Brilliant.
And that is Alpha13. It was a 4-week alpha this time, so not quite the behemoth of new content that we had for Alpha 12, but pretty cool, don't you think?
Absolutely. So we hope you enjoyed the Alpha 13 video. We will be back after the holidays, so wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year.